We were hired by a company to review the activities of a water damage restoration company. We're taking the high-tech training to provide that service, and insurance companies in particularly hire us to check out performance of a contractor. So when you go in to do this kind of work, there are really four things that you need to pay attention to. One is the building dry so that you can rebuild the structure? Because there's a plethora of documentation of companies that rebuilt a building and the wood was still wet inside and there was mold growth inside the cavity over a period of time. We don't want to do that. We have to do a moisture survey of the building. That means we have to use penetrating meters, non-penetrating meters, and maybe a thermal camera. We got to check out everything, the ceiling, the floor, the walls, to make sure it's ready to go. We have to pay attention to whether or not there's any mold that's been present. And if there is, then you have to determine whether it's a pre-existing condition or not. We completed the survey. We did find 5 areas where there was mold growth, but through laboratory analysis, determined that it was all pre-existing condition. And again, I've talked before about interpretation of laboratory data, and it does tell you a story, and you can tell the difference between existing and new versus pre-existing. You just have to know what you're looking at. So then you have to look at the contents and determine whether or not you've got to do something special with the contents, whether it's moldy or wet, or what's the condition, can it be cleaned properly and then put back. And then the fourth item is there any additional demolition that's required? There's the guideline for this is IICRCS 500. There's rules and guidelines and published information to try to help you out, and so there's some do's and don'ts and categories of water, and there's a lot to think about. So anyway, just be aware there are companies that go out and check behind somebody else. You don't have to simply have to trust the word of someone. You should be receiving a report. If you have to hire someone to do this kind of work, you should be receiving a report that, says this was the initial water loss, and this is how we set it up with so many dehumidifiers and fans, and this is the daily reduction of moisture in the building to standard dryness. You should be receiving a document like that, because in a real estate transaction, you are going to have to say, did you ever have a water loss? And you're going to have to say yes. And they're going to say, prove it was done correctly. And you're going to say, I don't have any documentation. That doesn't fly very far. Find out what someone's going to do for you before they do it. Bob Bennett, Farsight Management. Better use Farsight than hindsight. Take care.